What is up, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today Space Engineers released the Fieldwork Update version 1.206, which adds a bunch of things to the base game and to the DLC. So in this video, we're going to go over all the new blocks and the changes that are coming to the game today, that are in the game. Now, Keen was nice enough to give me a couple of extra keys for this DLC as well, so check the pinned comment for details on how you can enter a giveaway. But anyways, with that said, let's get into the new things that are being added to the base game before we go into DLC land. So base game stuff, they're adding a couple of new blocks, not a crazy amount of new blocks, but a couple of cool ones that I'd like to show off. So first of all, they're adding a new block to the Prototech lineup. These are the end game blocks that you can find out in the wild. It's very hard to build these, but you can find them. And this right here is the Prototech fusion reactor. So what this is basically a crazy enhanced version of the reactor. In fact, it doesn't even seem like it's a normal reactor. It seems like it's a reactor that does not require any uranium at all. If we go into the back of this thing and open it up, there is no cargo for this thing, but it does produce power. Let's go inside here. You can see that this is producing 400 megawatts of power. That's a lot. So with this little thing down here that says filled 100%, I'm fairly certain this is hydrogen, so it takes hydrogen to actually work. Maybe that's to cool down the reactor or something like that. But regardless, 400 megawatts of power is a crazy amount. Let's compare that to the uranium. Yeah, okay, so with a normal uranium reactor, the largest reactor that we can do without Prototech stuff, it's 300 megawatts of power, and compared to that, this is 100 more megawatts of power for using hydrogen instead of the more difficult to find uranium. So very cool. I'm glad to see another Prototech block added to the game. The Prototech stuff is very cool. This does not have a small grid variant, unfortunately. Moving right along, we have one that I'm sure a lot of you will be very excited for, and that is a small version of the oxygen tank. It's for the small grid only, but we've had this for the hydrogen tank for a long time, but the oxygen tank until now has always been sort of this large thing right here they'd have to put on small grid chips, and it was very difficult to sort of fit that in places you could find. So now we have these little oxygen tanks that we can use, just like the tiny hydrogen tanks. I'm very glad to see this added into the base game. Next up, we have a neat one here. This is the refill station, and this seems like something that's almost like a med bay or survival kit, but you don't need all the crazy stuff you would require for a survival kit, you know, the ability to respawn or anything like that. Instead, it's just somewhere you can run over to and you can refill all your stuff without needing the entire machine. And so we have that on the small grid right here. We also have that on the large grid in a variant that attaches to a block, and also a fully inset version of this, which has a couple of conveyor pieces all around it, almost like a proper like conveyor block. So you can see the requirements for this. There are no medical components in sight, meaning that this is going to be a very nice early game solution. Well, I say early game, there are superconductors required, so maybe I'll take that one back. No med components, but you do need to somehow find some superconductors to build this thing. But regardless, it'll be a good way to actually have a couple of options so that you can refill your oxygen, your hydrogen, and your power even without needing to build a bunch of med bays everywhere on your base. But anyways, moving along, we have a final thing that's being added to the base game here, the final block, and this is a really cool one. It's a small inset connector for the large grid. So for the longest time, you know, you've had these small connectors right here on, let's say, like your little ships. You'd have these little tiny connectors that they added that you can use, but the only problem is if you wanted to attach these to any large base, you'd have to do something crazy. Like, for instance, grab one of those guys right there, take off the top, put on a small rotor head, and then you'd have to put on your little connector kind of like this. So this is how you'd have to make a little connection on a large base. That's kind of a pain. But finally, we have this small connector for the large grid that you can just go and put somewhere, so it's much easier to actually stick these to your main base. One nice thing as well is it being an inset connector, it does have the two connections instead of the one that a normal connector has, so that is a very good addition to the base. So those are all of the blocks added to the base game, but they did add a couple of very nice quality of life features as well that I'll show off in the next room over here as soon as I blow that up. Okay, so inside this room, we've got a couple of things that I'm very excited to see in the base game. So what this is right here, in the last major update to Space Engineers, they added the ability to set piston heights, you know, rotor rotations and hinge rotations with a button. So you can go up to a button and tell it, you know, make this piston go 5 meters or 10 meters or something like that, and you can set the speed. Well, they've added that ability to a couple of other things as well, and I'm very excited for the third one I'll show off here. So the first one is thruster overrides. Now you can set this to a button or to an action or something like that. You can tell your thruster which override to go to. So for instance, I've got a couple of overrides set right here. So if I click this one, it'll go to 100% override. And we can see that if we run around to the back, you'll see it's got this plume showing that it's on override. And we'll actually see as well that our thrust override is all the way up at 166 kilonewtons. Now, if I set another button right here, for instance, this is 10%. So if I run over here, it's putting out a lot less thrust right there. If we were to go into its UI, you'd see that the thrust override is all the way down there. If I click this one, you'll see that it's now all the way up there. And if I click this one, you'll see that our thrust override turns off completely and we're now outputting 0 thrust in the override. So now that's very nice. You can set these with a button or with an action or with a timer block or anything like that. You can have it set the thrust override instead of just enabling or disabling it, which was all we could do before. Likewise, you can actually do this with wheels as well. So now I have the ability to set the wheel thrust override with a button. So if I click this one right here, it'll start giving it a little bit of thrust. If I click another one, it'll give it even more thrust, just like that. And if I click another one, I can turn it off completely. That's very nice. We can set our wheel thrust, so we can have our rovers use thrust override like that. But we can also do that with the wheel turning radius. So if I click this one, for instance, it'll turn downward like that. And if I click this one, it'll turn upward. This is very nice. All you have to do is go into your setup actions right here, grab your test wheel, whichever wheel you want to do, and you can go all down here and you have these set propulsion override or set steer override. So clicking these lets you actually set a value and you can even set a label for it as well. But it's very easy to just set your overrides, set your values like that, and just with a click of a button, we can kind of control these things very easily. Now, this is the really interesting one. This is the one I'm very excited for. We have 3 new options with setting values for lights. The first one is setting your radius. So we can set it to a very small radius here. We can set it to a larger radius. You can see it grow brighter a little bit there. Set it to an even larger radius or a even larger radius, or whatever radius you want. I just have these set up just to show them as an example. But you can see that the radius is changing, and that is very nice. Now you can also do this with the blink interval. So if I set it to this one right here, for instance, you'll see it'll start blinking there on a very short interval. I have another example right here, which is a slightly longer interval. You'll see it kind of waiting a little bit longer to do that blink. And then I've got an even longer interval right there. So it'll wait a very long time and then do its blink. And finally, an interval of 0 keeps the light on, which is very nice. And finally, this is the one I'm extremely excited for. We have the ability to set the RGB color of the light. So I can click a button right here and it's now red. I can click a button, it's now green. I can click a button, it's now blue, and now it's back to white, just like that. And I'll show you what we do to do that. If you go to setup actions and you get your test lights, you can run this down here and you can do set color. You also have the set blink interval and set radius right there. So set color gives you this little RGB picker, which is very nice. You can set it to any color you want. Now it's not the same as the block selection. It only gives you the RGB. It doesn't give you like hue and saturation, but that's completely fine. This is, this is the color options we've always had for lights. So like if I wanted it to be yellow, for instance, I could set it kind of like right there, confirm. It picks what color it thinks it is, by the way. I don't know how they're doing this, but they must have some library that's like seeing the color that you choose and deciding what color it thinks that is, which is kind of funny to just play around with that. But it thinks that's khaki, so we'll let it say that that's khaki, and now it'll turn that to khaki or whatever. Now the final option that we have for the set actions is the ability to set the AI flight move speed limit. So we can set that just with a button right here. If I go into it, it's very hard to test this one. I'd have to actually build a little AI thing and have it flying around, but you'll see it's 20 meters per second. And if I click it again right here, and we go back, you'll see it is 10 meters per second, I believe. Yeah. So we can set up little buttons or actions to tell it to do that. That'd be really easy. That'd be really good, for instance, if you want it to go very slowly when it's landing, but you want it to go very fast as it's going between locations. It'd be nice to just have this set your speed at a certain value instead of, I think what I was trying to do before when I was trying to do something like that was having 2 AI moves where one of them had the faster speed and one of them had the slower speed, and then enabling or disabling them based on which one I wanted to work. This makes it a lot easier. So very good additions all around. I'm very happy to see these things. Even more than the base blocks over there, the Prototech stuff, I'm happy to see stuff like this because this is very nice quality of life. Speaking of quality of life, we have action slot improvements. So if I go into an event controller, for instance, and I go down to the actions, you can actually see a little bit better what is what your actions are doing here. So you'll see in this one right here, it's got a little checkbox, slot 1 when true, slot 2 when false. I don't think it updates if I do something like this. It would be nice if it took this value right here, like block integrity % greater than 46, it would be nice if it actually put that in here, like saying slot 1 when block integrity is greater than something, when it's less than something, so it inverted it right there. That would be an even better improvement, but what I'm seeing here is very nice because this is a good quality of life thing. There have been times where I'm like racking my brain, I'm like, okay, what? So if I put it here, is that the true one or is that the false one? So this really helps you out when you're working with this stuff. Very good for newer players as well if they don't know how this stuff works. Another very nice one is we have a terrain clearing option for the drill. So if you go into the control panel of a drill, we now have this terrain clearing mode, which will allow you to, essentially, you know how you have a right click on a drill where it will clear terrain instead of collecting materials? That's what this does. So before, if you wanted to turn on your drill, it would only work as like a normal drill collecting materials, but now you can set it in terrain clearing mode and it will not collect materials, which is very cool. But it says does not affect manual control of the drill. So if you're left click, right clicking, it will not affect that. You still terrain clear with right click and grab materials with left click. Finally, over here, we have a search option for the, this applies to the jump drive and to the sorter. So if we go in here and run all the way down here, we now have a search option. So if I want to find specifically stone, I can just search for stone and now it's actually filtering it there. I can add it. And if I want, let's say iron, I can go right there. That just makes it a lot quicker so you don't have to scroll through this bar right here. I wonder if they added a search bar. It would be nice if they do have a search bar here. I think this might be new. I don't think this used to be here, right? In the spawn menu for creative mode. So if you look for elite, yeah, I don't think this used to be here. So it wasn't in the patch notes, but I think they added this search bar for this as well. And if they did, then thank you very much, because anytime I've wanted to spawn something in, for instance, it's difficult to run down and like search for what you want. Does the assembler also have a search bar? If it does, if it has had a search bar this entire time and I've not seen it, then it does have a search bar. I think it probably has had a search bar. Bottle? Oh, but it doesn't search through all. It just searches through the one tab. Okay, so that's still kind of a pain. It'd be nice to search through all, like search through everything with that, but okay, anyway, yeah, you have that right there. Another really nice quality of life feature that they've added is if I press K and go into the GPS, they've added the ability to multi-select your GPS things, and you can change the color right then and there, or whatever you want. Actually looks like it's being a little weird. Yeah, it is being a little weird as I try and change the color. You can see it's like trying to revert to white every few seconds, but yeah, so you can now multi-select these, show on HUD. Maybe I want to delete these at the same time. We can delete those. Same with these right here. But anyway, yeah, multi-select on the GPS is very nice. Going into our options, we have another really cool thing that they've done, and this isn't one that I'm probably going to use, but they've added a lot of new keybinds that you can set. So things like, I don't know exactly where they would be. Maybe I'll put an entire list of what they added on the screen, but they added like, I want to say it's like 20 to 30 new keybinds that weren't in the game are now able to be bound, which is very cool. Okay, the last major thing that I want to talk about, but I'm not going to show you guys because I don't have one that I can very easily show you here, but it's something that you can look out for in your new worlds or in your existing worlds even as well, because I'm pretty sure it's compatible with existing worlds. And that is, they did an entire cargo ship and unknown signal overhaul. We actually do have an unidentified signal there. Maybe I'll go check that out toward the end of this look through. Just to see what that is. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that stuff, the cargo ship overhaul and the unknown signal overhaul in your worlds, because they're there, they're out there. So that's all the base game stuff that they've added. Let's take a look at the new DLC, which is the Fieldwork Update DLC. So like I said, there's a giveaway that I'm going to be doing for, I think 5 DLC keys. And you know what? I've got a couple of Space Engineers 2 keys as well. Maybe I'll throw in a giveaway for Space Engineers 2 also. So check out the pinned comment for information on how you can enter that giveaway and when it's going to end and stuff like that. Okay, so DLC land. Now let's take a look at the DLC blocks. You can probably already see quite a few of them over here that we're gonna look at. Now, I'll remind you that the DLC for Space Engineers is meant to be only non-functional blocks or functional blocks that are kind of like replacements of existing blocks. So nothing that is going to kind of give you an unfair advantage in Space Engineers if you don't have. It'll give you an unfair advantage in making your base look pretty, but not necessarily like being able to you know, build something. But yeah, with that said, let's go and start with the first block here, which is the sliding glass door. So they've added a sliding glass door here, which is very nice. It takes a very small footprint right there, and it fits in nicely with the normal glass blocks, glass window blocks that are in the game. So there's our nice sliding door right there. It's got a nice paint job right there on the side as well, and it is. It's kind of opaque. Is that the right word? No, it's kind of shaded on one side and less shaded on the other side, just like the normal window blocks right here. So they've got two versions of that. One is an inverted version so that you can see, you know, kind of like the windows have an inverted version that switches the sides. We have one for this one as well. The next thing is what's in here, which is a bunch of different lab desks, some very nice new desks that you can use to spice up your lab life here. We've got the first one, which is a seated version of the desk. It looks like it's got a little LCD right there, a couple of lab things, some hard drives maybe, or whatever lab, I don't know, if you guys are scientists, maybe you know what that is. We've got some more over here on the corner desk variant, as well as a microscope, as well as, you know, a grid right there. Oh, is the game gonna crash? Oh, I think the game might crash. That's not good. Yep, the game crashed. And we're back. That is strange. I had a game crash the other day as well. That was before the update. So I don't know if that crash is update related or if it's just the game being weird, maybe not liking that I had Premiere Pro open on the side or something like that. But anyways, let's keep looking at these desks. We've got a couple of unknown liquids in there. Very cool. It's interesting. We have, I'm not sure I like the hitbox of this. I can't actually walk very nicely in that corner of that. There's a little bit of hitbox that kind of goes right there, where like a chair might be that you would expect. So I wonder if they use the same hitbox as like one of the existing desks. But anyway, that's not a huge thing. Moving on over, we've got another variant of the desk, and it's got what looks like an, you know, an electron microscope. Scientists out there, correct me if I'm wrong about that. I don't know what an electron microscope is, but it looks like a microscope, and I know that that's a normal compound microscope, so that's probably an electric one. But yeah, you know, unknown liquids as well. We've got what looks like a little control station here, which is very cool. Is that clickable? That is. It's the microscope lab desk, very cool. We've got the lab sink, which I'm pretty sure there's no functional parts on this. I don't think you can actually click into anything, but it's very cool to have a little sink in your area. You could probably use this as like a kitchen sink as well if you wanted to. This is just a duplicate of that I put down. We've got a, this is a standing desk version, or I should say a chairless desk version. It's the chairless version of that right there. And on this one, you can see that there's I think that's called a centrifuge, as well as a little vial right there. Very cool looking thing. We've got like what looks like one of those shotguns, or maybe that's a thermometer. I'm not sure what that little gun looking thing is, but yeah, very cool version of that. And we've got a cabinet version of this as well with a couple books up there. You know, it might even have a little storage. Nope, actually no storage in this. Oh no, I lied. There is a little bit of storage, 6,000 liters of storage. I'm on the 10 times storage settings, by the way, so it'd have 600 if you were on realistic. Whatever that is. Little couple cabinets right there. Very cool. Couple of very nice little lab desks to spice up your base life. I like that. All right, moving on to our second lab over here. We have some more lab stuff. This is our sliding door again. And we have a couple of experiments right here. We have the lab experiment number 1. These are non-functional blocks. All 3 of these that we're gonna look at are non-functional. There's nothing you can click on them, but they have a couple cool little animations there. This one's got a bunch of bubbling bubbles, I guess, bubbling to the surface. This one's kind of a bigger version of that that's got bubbling bubbles as well. And finally, we have another version of this which has some lightning in the middle. It's kind of cool, kind of a cool little thing. I'm sure you could use this for more than just kind of lab experiment stuff. Got a couple ports right there as well. And a little, I don't know, engine looking thing. It's a cool block, this one. I like this. I like having the little electric particles in the center. But yeah, these 3 are non-functional, just kind of there as decorations. These over here, however, are lab vats. And these are kind of replacement blocks for the cryo chamber. So you can actually sit in this thing. It's got a little storage, and it's got the area where you can sit. You can hear it makes the same sound as the cryo chamber, as well as kind of like a bubbly sound. And if you're in it, this is what it looks like. This is what you look like chilling inside the vat instead of the cryo chamber. Now you'll see that I've placed mine sideways right there, but I would imagine you can also place it, you know, upright if you wanted to. Here, let me grab a vat real quick. In fact, you know what? I bet you they're meant to be placed upright like that. I just figured I placed these ones there, so these look kind of the same. But if we have it like that, then let's see what you look like. Yeah, you kind of look like a little zombie or something in a vat. I'm sure some cinematographers could make some cool cinematics with like engineers in vats and stuff like that. Or maybe some like skins, like zombie looking skins in vats. Be very cool. But anyway, yeah, that is the vat. Just kind of a reskin of the cryo chamber. And over here we have the lab freezer, which is, I think this goes pretty well with those other blocks over there. It has a little bit of storage, the lab freezer, 15,000 liters or 1,500 on the realistic settings. And it's just a cool little block where you can open and close this thing right here. Again, a couple blocks to spice up your base. Now let's move outside of these little lab areas and let's move on to some of the more functional stuff. So over here, we have some functional blocks that are reskinned as well. So these here are, this is a lab O2H2 generator. So this is, it's just an O2H2 generator, but a lab, look. So the normal O2H2 generator is a 2x1. I'll actually place it down here. So with the same color job right there, that's the normal O2H2 generator. So the reskin version's a little bit bigger. It adds this kind of cool bubbly thing up top, which I think looks kind of neat. Be a nice addition to the base. And that has a large and a small grid variant. So that is the small grid variant. It's the same size as the vanilla O2H2 generator. It's actually got the same connections. This is a large right there. It just has this kind of animation attached to it. So very cool. I like the reskin. Moving on, we have a lab variation of a hydrogen tank. So this is the same size as a small hydrogen tank in the vanilla game. Its connections are in different places. If I pull out the vanilla one, there is the vanilla hydrogen tank. So yeah, same size, just different little connections. Like there's not a connection there, but I think it might have one on the bottom. Let me pull it out real quick. Yep, it does have a connection on the bottom, so a slightly different connection area on the reskinned variant. And we also have a small grid version of that as well, which looks just like the normal hydrogen tank small grid variant. There is the vanilla hydrogen tank, and there is the lab variant of the hydrogen tank. So pretty much the same thing, just with a slightly different look attached to it. Moving on, we have another oxygen tank reskin. So this right here is the lab variant of the oxygen tank. Looks quite cool. It actually looks like the large hydrogen tank vanilla, but in oxygen form. I like the look. It's got the connections in a different place. I'll pull out the small. Yep, there we go. There's the small oxygen tank right there. We'll give it the same color just so you can see it next to each other. I probably should have set it up before I started recording, but you'll see the vanilla one has the connections on the sides there, whereas the oxygen one appears to have the connection on the bottom. Yep, it's got two connections on the bottom. So same number of connections, just in a different place. But yeah, we've got reskinned variants of these three things, which are going to be fun to use. No small grid version of that one though, just a large grid version of the oxygen tank. Moving right along, we've got our second version of the door that they've added to the Fieldwork DLC. So this right here is a door that's a sliding door for the circular corridor that they've added. So they've added this sliding door here, and they've also added these circular corridors, which have a straight block. They've got a curved block. They have a light block like the normal corridors. They have a T junction. They have a X junction, which is just open on all sides. I just built this room to kind of show off. I don't know. I didn't know what to put here, so I put a little room, which makes use of some of those desk blocks that we showed off earlier. And finally, they have a transition from the circular one to a normal corridor. So this I like. This is pretty cool. It's kind of half circular and half normal corridor. So it lets you kind of transition into a normal corridor block, which is something that they added with one of the other DLCs. So yeah, we have a little transition block right there that transitions. And if you don't have that other DLC, don't worry, because you can also transition into, for instance, let's remove that. We can transition into like a catwalk or something, because it's also raised just like that. It would look, pretty normal as well if you transitioned kind of like that. So yeah, very cool. This is the first transition I think we've seen, and I really like it. I like how they've done it. It looks cool to me. Moving right along, we have some new floor blocks. So I think this is the first time they've added specifically floor blocks. If I go in here and search floor, you'll see that they've only, these are the only ones that they have. So they have one right here, which is actually, let me pull out my welder so I can tell you what they're called. They've got a floor edge, they've got a floor decal, they've got a floor center, they've got a floor passage, and they've got a floor 3x3 slab, which is very cool. I think 3x3 blocks is something that people have wanted in Space Engineers for a long time to reduce their block usage. So this would be something that that we could use, you know, it'd be kind of cool. So all of these have different variations on every side that you can make use of. For instance, this side right here, when we turn on my flashlight, it's got like kind of the dark line right there and the circle. This has just the line. This has kind of a curved line. This is just a little circle thing. This has 2 circles. This one right here has lines on the side with some vent looking ones, a little caution. This one has some greebling kind of right there. You know, they've all got kind of things right there. And I've gone and actually used them to create like a bit of a floor. This one you can imagine would be like a little bit of a parking zone. This one I was just messing with the curvy blocks. This one I was trying to figure out how to use the slab somewhere. You know, just kind of, you know, a little walkway over here. Just kind of stuff like that. Now these do have a couple of small grid variations as well. It's got a normal block, like a tiny one, and a slab. So I made a little design right here with some colored blocks. There's the slab, and then these are the different sides of the floor center one on the small grid, where I made kind of a little mosaic looking thing, which I think looks kind of cool. You know, you can mess around with that and make your own designs or something like that. Moving right along, this is one that I think a lot of people are going to enjoy, and these are pipe blocks. Now, as far as I can tell, these are purely decorative. These are not like conveyors, but they are pipe blocks, and we have a pipe straight 1, we have a pipe straight 2, which has a little valve, which is really cool. I can imagine using that quite a bit on the base to show like a valve. Now, one thing I would love, actually, I think this would be really cool, is if you could turn this valve. Like if this acted as a button where you could actually click it and it would turn and it would have an action slot that you could like, say, do something with. And we'll actually see the exhaust blocks over there. Maybe having those connected to one of these would be really cool, where you could have kind of an exhaust come out or something, maybe on a timer. I don't know, I think that'd just be really cool if this was a more functional thing. But anyway, we have a normal, an end block actually. So this has open on one side and it's got the endings on the other side. We have a curved block. We have an upward curved pipe block. We have a over curved pipe box. This is like a top, this is a bottom. And we have a junction pipe block, which also has that red thing right there. Again, having this be functional so that you could actually click it would be so cool to me. But yeah. It's a one where you can have pipes on all sides, which is kind of cool. So yeah, there are our pipe blocks right there. 7, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 pipe blocks in total. And I'm sure people can do some really cool stuff with this stuff. I know I'm going to be using them in my bases definitely in the future. They look really good. But anyways, let's move on to one that I really like. This is probably my favorite addition to, you know, block-wise to the game in this DLC here. And these are, what do they call them? They call these cargo terminal blocks. This is something I've been asking for a very, very long time. And this is one that I find a little bit controversial as well, because these I almost think are on the functional level where maybe they shouldn't be a DLC and maybe they should be in the base game. I really hope that they add something like this to the base game. And actually, I'll go check to see if the refill sections work like this. But essentially what these are terminals where you can access the grid system from just a normal block. So this one right here is kind of like, I don't know if this acts as cargo. It actually does. It acts as a cargo container. So this is a normal cargo container, and you can see that it has 156. This one right here also has 156. So it's a reskin for the normal cargo container over there. But essentially, you can just click on it, and it brings you into the cargo terminal. Now, this is something I've been asking for a very long time, because I don't like throwing cargo containers everywhere on my base. So having something like this is really cool, in my opinion. And this one as well is a cargo terminal half, and it has exactly half the space. So in essence, what you end up with here is kind of like a half cargo container, which is interesting, right? This is the first time we've had a half cargo container on the large grid. So I really like this concept of being able to, you know, place these everywhere in your base and be able to go into the grid system. But what I would like, and I don't know that they're going to do anything like this because they're releasing it now, but what I would like is to have something like this where you could essentially like set, you know, you could have all your cargo containers on the base and you could set one as the default so that when you click into here, that would be the cargo container that appears at the top right here. So it's pretty much every time you access it, it's pointing to another cargo container as if you were accessing that cargo container. I don't know, I think that would be the perfect option for a terminal like this, but either way, I'm very happy to see these. And again, I think this should probably be a base game thing, not a DLC thing, but it's a very cool addition to the game, and I like it. And I guess with it being a reskin of a normal cargo container, it's fine, but this one's a little bit kind of teetering on the edge where it's a half cargo container. You know, there doesn't exist any sort of thing in the vanilla game that's like that, so I don't know. It's a little bit more controversial in my opinion. But finally, the final thing that they've added in the Fieldwork DLC are these exhaust caps, which act as normal exhaust things, except they're only caps. So they're very tiny versions of the exhaust. So we have a large grid and we have a small grid, and they take up very little space, about as much space as a landing gear, or not a mag plate rather, but they do the same thing as a normal exhaust. So pulling these out, yeah, you can see how much space these take up. It's really like no space at all, and they have the same options as the exhaust. Now, I wasn't able to get the small one working, strangely enough. I put it on this rotor here, but every time I access it and try to give it something, like right now it's got fire. Every time I try and give it fire, it's not doing anything. So I wonder if there's like a bug where it's technically not powered. So maybe if I put like a battery on there, no, even still. So I'm not exactly sure what is up with this one right here. It doesn't seem to be doing the thing, but yeah, anyway, they've added these exhaust caps that you can use. And finally, that's everything for the Fieldwork DLC. So everything that you pay for if you buy the Fieldwork DLC is all that is in front of us there. But they've added a couple more things to an existing DLC. So to the contact pack, they added all of these bridge blocks here, and they've added a couple more. So they've thrown in a couple more that you can now use. So one of them some of them are these kind of like these kind of half slanted blocks right here. So they've got a floor version and a non-floor version here. They've got another variant of the half slanted block right here. They've got these kind of, corner blocks, I guess, right here. And I'm pretty sure these are the other ones that they've added. I'm not entirely sure which ones they added and which ones were already in the thing. I think at least these 6 were ones that they added, but they said they added 7, so maybe one of these? I'm really not sure, but regardless, what's in front of me right now is all of the bridge blocks that exist. So whichever ones that you see that weren't there before are the ones that they added. That's one thing I like about their DLCs, is that every now and then with updates, they add new stuff to existing DLC. So kind of you get more bang for your buck with the thing that you've already paid for, which is kind of cool. But anyway, yeah, that is everything that they're adding in this update. I'm sure I missed a couple of smaller things. Hopefully I didn't miss anything that's huge. Let's go over a recap here. They've added a couple of these blocks to the base game. All of this stuff is free for anyone who owns the game. So all of these new blocks you will be getting starting, a couple hours ago, actually, because it's already out. They added the ability to set these, set a couple of functions with buttons. Very cool. They added some action slot improvements, terrain clearing options, search options, a bunch of quality of life stuff. They added the Fieldworks DLC, which adds a bunch of new lab stuff, a bunch of reskins of existing blocks, a bunch of new corridor blocks, floor blocks, and pipe blocks and stuff like that, a new cargo terminal, and they added stuff to the contact update as well. So that is all the stuff coming in the next update, or in this update that's already out. So go play Space Engineers. Fieldwork Update is out. You can experience all this stuff right now if you want to. So with that all being said, remember that there is a giveaway happening. Check the pinned comment below for information on how to enter that. It's going to be 5 keys for the DLC, and I don't know, maybe like 3 Space Engineers 2 keys. I'm not 100% sure how many I have, but yeah, it'll be down in that comment. But anyways, that's going to be the end of this one. Let me know what you guys think about this update. Do you think that they had a pretty good array of items being added to the base game and to the DLC? Do you think the Fieldwork DLC is worth it? Where would you rate it on your scale of DLCs? If you own it already, or if you plan to own it in the future, how do you think you're going to use all these blocks? Let me know in the comments. We can have a bit of a discussion. And with that, that's going to be the end of this one. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please do so, as it'll give you notifications for when videos are live and stuff like that. If you'd like to join YouTube as a member or become a patron of the channel, check the link below in the description. There are a couple cool perks, like getting your name in the end credits, getting early access to videos, and in some cases you might even get a shout out at the end of the video. So we're gonna go ahead and shout out 3 people who have those tiers. We'll do Queen Danny, Heretical John, and Stellaris Ignis. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you everybody who watches these videos for your support as well. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.